Your behavior has raised some red flags, he said, sliding a printed memo across the desk with a rehearsed calm. It wasn't about behavior. It was about silence. And I refused to stay quiet. So they tried to bury me. What they didn't know? Every detail was already backed up. My name's Mitchell Harris, I'm 48, and until 6 months ago I was director of operations at a healthcare logistics firm based out of Minneapolis. For 12 years I kept that machine running, the outbar, messy, thankless side of the business that no one brags about but everyone depends on. I wasn't flashy, didn't care about the politics or the quarterly town halls with buzzwords that meant nothing. My focus was simple: keep things moving, keep costs clean, and make sure the clients never saw the chaos behind the curtain. What they never saw, though, was the cost of integrity. 3 years ago, we landed a government contract that changed everything. Bigger budget, tighter scrutiny. I built the reporting system myself. Every figure matched. Every number had backup. I didn't think twice about it, but then things got weird. Invoices started showing up without matching work orders. Vendors I'd never heard of billed us for services that didn't exist. I raised it in a weekly meeting. Calmly. I didn't accuse anyone. I just asked for clarification. The room went silent. From that day on, everything shifted. I stopped being invited to budget reviews. My dashboard access was restricted. One of my analysts, a kid I mentored since his internship, got reassigned overnight. Suddenly, the same leadership team that once called me the backbone of operations was keeping me out of the loop. And I knew. I wasn't being frozen out because I was wrong. I was being frozen out because I was right. So I stopped talking and started saving files. I joined when the company was still operating out of a leased space above a hardware store. No ERP system, no procurement structure, no real logistics plan. Just a small team with oversized ambition and no idea how to scale it. My first month, I rewrote the entire supply chain workflow on my living room floor. Sticky notes, whiteboards, hand-drawn maps of regional routing. I built vendor relationships, from scratch, negotiated rates we still used years later, and implemented the first inventory control system that actually worked. Back then, we were a family. We celebrated small wins. I'd spend weekends helping load shipments when drivers didn't show. Not because it was expected, because we believed in what we were building. I remember getting a call at 11 p.m. on a Friday. A pallet mislabeled, in Chicago, blocking a hospital delivery. I drove 3 hours to fix it myself. That delivery saved someone's transplant surgery window. I never told anyone, because it wasn't about credit. It was about doing it right. As the company grew, so did the hierarchy. New investors, new managers, new board members. And somewhere along the way, we stopped solving problems and started managing optics. The mission was still printed on the wall, but the soul of the place, that got outsourced. Still, I stayed, because loyalty meant something to me. But apparently, it didn't mean much to them. It started small. Budget reports I used to review were now being finalized by finance. Calls I'd normally be copied on, quietly rerouted. One of my direct reports was suddenly reporting to someone else. Just a realignment, they said. No warning, no explanation. Then came the visibility meetings, a cute name for closed door, sessions where people I'd never met were presenting slides about departments they'd never worked in. When I asked questions, I got smiles. When I pressed for answers, I got silence. But the real shift came when I saw the numbers. We were billing for equipment that had never shipped, materials logged from suppliers we didn't have contracts with, reimbursements for vendor travel to cities where we didn't operate. And the signatures? Digital, convenient, and forged. I flagged 3 discrepancies, documented them, sent them to legal. No reply. The next morning, I was pulled from a project I had been managing for over a year. Time to diversify leadership visibility, they said. 2 weeks later, I was formally placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation for internal sabotage. They claimed I'd been altering financial records to discredit management. That's when I knew. This wasn't incompetence. This was coordinated. They were covering something, and I was the insurance policy they needed to remove before it surfaced. What they didn't know? The backup logs, the audit trails, the private messages, the files. I already had them. They expected me to panic, to beg, to fight, to lawyer up too early and show my hand. But I didn't. I went quiet. Let the investigation play out while I watched from the sidelines. HR kept sending vague updates. Still reviewing your access logs. Waiting on IT's final report. Meanwhile, they had already reassigned my office, my projects, even my assistant, to someone who couldn't explain the difference between gross margin and net. It was laughable. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for months. After the first flagged invoice, I started compiling everything: timestamps, internal memos, Slack threads, vendor call recordings. I even used a personal script to scrape and store every relevant dashboard interaction tied to my credentials, and the ones made using my credentials after I was locked out. Every time they tried to erase me, they only deepened the trail. Then came the calls. A regional partner reached out, said their payments were delayed and no one was giving a straight answer. Another vendor followed. Then a client. They were confused, frustrated. I could have jumped in, tried to save the day from the outside, but I didn't. I let the silence grow, because the longer I stayed quiet, the louder their cracks became. They were unraveling, and they hadn't even noticed it was me holding the last thread. The message came through LinkedIn. Simple, direct. Would love to hear your side of the story. Lunch on me. It was from Dana, COO of a fast-scaling logistics tech firm I'd met once at a conference years ago. She remembered my presentation on decentralized routing protocols. Said it stuck with her. I almost didn't respond, but something told me, this is the pivot. We met at a quiet corner table downtown. No suits, no PR team. Just two people who knew how to read a room. I've been following what's happening, she said. It's ugly, but also textbook. I nodded. She continued. We're expanding, fast, but our operations need someone who's already lived the fire. Not just someone who can design systems, someone who can rebuild trust. And just like that, the table turned. She wasn't offering a title, she was offering the keys. Full operational control, build it from scratch, hire my team, create the culture I never had the freedom to build. I asked for a week. During that week, the cracks at my old firm exploded into headlines. A leaked report confirmed internal fraud, misuse of federal funds, and whistleblower suppression. And to top it off, clients started pulling out. Investors demanded audits. The CEO issued a tone-deaf statement blaming disgruntled employees. That was my cue. They called me, of course. Someone from legal, someone from PR, even one of the VPs who hadn't spoken to me in months. Garrett, we believe there's been a misunderstanding. If you'd be open to consulting, I cut them off. No, not out of spite. Out of clarity. You don't throw someone out the window and then ask them to fix the broken glass. I accepted Dana's offer that same day. And by the end of the quarter, I had already brought over 3 of their former clients, not by persuasion, just by being the one who told the truth from the start. The first headline hit on a Thursday. Logistics firm under federal review for misuse of public funds. Didn't have to read the article. I already knew every detail. I'd written the internal memos, logged the timestamps, flagged the anomalies. The only difference now? Everyone else could finally see what I saw months ago. Then came the whistleblower lawsuit, from someone I'd never even met. Apparently I wasn't the only one watching quietly. And once the first person stepped forward, 5 more followed. They had receipts, screenshots, forwarded emails, everything leadership thought they deleted. The firm tried to spin it, blamed a rogue team, said they were committed to internal accountability. But the truth was out. Vendors froze. Contracts, clients withheld payments, internal Slack messages leaked. The board launched an emergency investigation and placed the CEO and CFO on indefinite leave, which we all know is code for they're gone and we can't say it yet. One of my old team members, Mark, reached out. They're threatening. Legal action, he said. trying to pin this on you. I smiled. Let them. Because for every lie they threw in my direction, I had the receipts. Time-stamped, off-network, independently stored. The legal team I worked with at my new company handled everything. Fast, clean, final. They never even made it to court, because when the feds got involved, the last thing they wanted was discovery. By Q4, the company's stock had dropped 38%. The merger talks collapsed. Half their C-suite resigned. And the clients who hadn't already left, they were calling me. Not for help, for a seat at my table. It was an internal memo, one of those not meant for public eyes kind of documents, sent accidentally to an old email address still linked to my cloud backup. Subject line, Risk Mitigation Strategy, Post-Dismissal Narrative. I opened it, and there it was, a full timeline, weeks before my suspension, outlining how to phase out operational leadership with high internal influence, how to control potential fallout by reframing the dismissal as a disciplinary response, and unbelievably a prepared list of statements to use in case I went public. They had planned everything, even the fake sabotage accusation, even the HR script, even the talking points they used to convince the board I was emotionally unstable due to burnout. I stared at the document for a full minute. Then I forwarded it, not to the press, to my lawyer. Within days, a new layer of the scandal broke. Premeditated retaliation against internal whistleblower, the headlines read. Government investigators reopened their case. The board issued a statement. We were not aware of this plan and condemn any coordinated effort to silence internal concerns. Suddenly, I was no longer just a disgruntled ex-employee. I was the guy who tried to warn them and got punished for it. People started reaching out. Former employees, clients, even reporters. One of them asked, "Why didn't you say something sooner?" I told him the truth. I did. They just didn't listen. And that's what stung the most. Not that they tried to erase me, but that they thought I'd stay erased. The new office wasn't fancy. Glass walls? No. Trendy beanbags? Definitely not. Just a converted floor above a fulfillment center with a coffee machine that barely worked and a view of the parking lot. But it was ours. We started with 5 people. All of them had either been fired, forced out, or overlooked, just like me. And that was our superpower. No egos, no showboating. Just people who knew how bad it could get and how good it could be when built the right way. We didn't hire resumes. We hired people who called back when they said they would, people who remembered names, who checked facts, who read the whole contract before signing it. And the clients? They followed. Not all at once, but steadily. Month after month, former partners reached out, not because of marketing, not because of discounts, but because they trusted us. I wasn't building a company, I was restoring a standard. And it felt different this time. No more walking on eggshells during budget season, no more smiling through lies in board meetings, just transparency, execution, and results. One afternoon I found a note on my desk, handwritten, no signature. Thanks for building the kind of place we were all hoping for. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about redemption. Not just mine, ours. I got the call on a Tuesday private number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Harris, this is Megan Tate. I'm calling on behalf of the restructuring committee overseeing the transition at... She said the name of the company like it still meant something. We're looking to stabilize operations after recent leadership changes. Your name came up. Of course it did. The same board that once signed off on my removal was now asking me to come back. Not as an employee, but as the architect of a rescue. They weren't offering an apology. They were offering control. Full authority to rebuild operational compliance, vendor trust, and internal governance, Megan said. We need someone who can restore credibility. The timeline is urgent. I paused. Then I asked, why me? Silence. Then honesty. Because no one trusts anyone else anymore. But they trust you. I didn't say yes. Not right away. I made a list. Not of demands, of standards, non-negotiables, no shadow budgets, no performance theater, no one in leadership without field experience. And I would choose the team. Every single person, they agreed. All of it. When I walked back into that building, months after being escorted out, I didn't bring a grudge. I brought a blueprint. This time, I wasn't there to survive the system. I was there to replace it. No. One clapped when I walked in, and that's exactly how I wanted it. Same building, same lobby, same smell of burnt coffee and recycled air. But this time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. I didn't take the corner office. I set up my desk next to compliance, left the doors open, sat in the same chair I used, to offer visitors when they needed 5 minutes to breathe. People noticed, not just the ones who remembered me, but the new hires too. The ones who had only heard stories. Some looked confused, some relieved. A few just nodded like, finally. Didn't need to give a speech, I let systems speak. I let clean ledgers, on-time deliveries, and vendor emails titled, "Thank you for the transparency" speak. One of the old execs approached me in the hallway a few days in. "You really came back?" I looked him in the eye. No. I rebuilt forward, and then I kept walking. This wasn't about payback anymore. I wasn't here to flex or dominate. I was here because someone had to clean the mess, and this time, do it right. The real victory? Watching people breathe again. Watching decisions get made without fear. Watching the interns speak in meetings and get heard. The old regime had power, but what I built had weight. I never wanted a statue, just a pipeline. So I built one. Every quarter, we brought in 5 apprentices. Not interns fetching coffee. Apprentices. People from overlooked schools, from non-traditional paths. Veterans, single parents. Quiet minds with sharp instincts. I taught them how to audit a vendor contract line by line, how to spot when the numbers looked too clean, how to trust their gut, and document everything, and more importantly, how to lead without noise. We had no leadership training manuals, just stories, mistakes. Hard-earned wisdom passed down every Friday afternoon in a round table I never missed. One day, one of the apprentices asked me, "What made you stay in this industry after what they did to you?" I looked at her. "Because if I left, they'd win, and worse, you'd never learn how to fight back the right way." She didn't blink. She understood. That's the mission now, not revenue, not market share. Legacy is the people who stay when you're no longer around and doing it right because you showed them how. They tried to erase me with silence, so I answered with structure. And in the end, it wasn't the shouting that proved them wrong. It was the fact that everything still standing was built by the man they tried to bury.